Okay, so last time, remember, we were dealing with trig functions, right? And we're using trig functions here to actually show, we're using them to determine the lengths of sides of a right triangle, assuming we know the length of one side and we know all the angles. I mean, keep in mind, if you know it's a right triangle, so we know one angle is 90 degrees. If you know another angle, right, then you do know the third angle, because the angles in a triangle have to add up to 180 degrees. You know, that's a fact about geometry. If we know the length of one side, in this case we know the hypotenuse is 5, we can actually use trigonometry to get the two remaining sides, to get the length of them. So here, for instance, we're going to use trigonometry to get the length of A, and then without using A, in particular without using Pythagorean's theorem, we're going to get the length of B. Okay. I mean, again, remember, the hard part about these is really just trying to figure out which trig function you use. Well, for A, right, our angle is 55 degrees, right? Now, the length, now here, side A, that's the adjacent side, okay? 5 is the hypotenuse. All right, so we have adjacent and hypotenuse. Okay, so what trig function do we use? Cosine. Okay, we use cosine because, again, we have adjacent and hypotenuse. Okay, that's what we have here. Adjacent and hypotenuse. So we have to use cosine. Now, cosine then of 55 degrees, right, by trigonometry, SOHCAHTOA, is the length of the adjacent side over the length of the hypotenuse. Okay. I mean, I wrote the hypotenuse is 5, but really it should be the length is 5. The hypotenuse, the length of it is 5, but I think everyone understands what I mean. So cosine of 55 degrees then is A over 5. We can use this to figure out A, right? I mean, now it's just basic algebra. The hard part is done. So what can we do? We can multiply both sides here by 5, as you can see. Now, why does that help? Well, what happens is when you multiply both sides by 5, the 5's here cancel. All you're left with is 5 times cosine of 55 degrees on the left. And that's equal to A. Now, how do we calculate this? Well, cosine of 55 degrees, I mean, I don't know it by heart. That is, I don't have it memorized. But we don't have to because we have our calculators. And remember, you want to be in degree mode since the angle's in degrees. But cosine of 55 degrees turns out to be 0.573576, approximately. So then A, right, I interchange both sides of the equation here. A is 5 times cosine of 55 degrees. That's approximately 5 times this, which turns out to be this number. 2.8679. So we get approximately that. Okay. Now that's for A. What about B? Well, for B, let me change the, what do you call it, the pen color? Oh, purple. Now for B, well, B is the side opposite the angle, right? So we have the opposite side and the hypotenuse. What do we use? Opposite, hypotenuse. We're going to use sine. So for B, B is opposite, is the length of the opposite side. Okay? We have the hypotenuse has length 5. So we have opposite and hypotenuse. So we're going to use sine here. So sine of 55 degrees, that turns out to be B over 5. Okay, again, b is the length of the opposite side. The length of the hypotenuse is 5, so we have this here. By SOHCAHTOA, sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So just like we did here with cosine, for sine we have to isolate b. That is, we have to solve for b. Now how do we do that? Well, you can multiply here both sides by 5. And what does that do? Well, the 5's cancel here. On the left, you have 5 times sine of 55 degrees. So we have 5 times sine of 55 degrees. That's equal to b. Okay, so just like before, we need our calculator, right? Because we have to figure out what sine of 55 degrees is. So this is 0.819152. So b then is equal to 5 times sine of 55 degrees. Here I interchange both sides of the equation. And when you multiply this by 5, you get about 4.0958. So now we got b. All right, that was good. But again, that's demonstrating how trigonometry can be used to find the lengths of unknown sides of a right triangle. Any questions on that? All right. Okay, originally there was something else I was going to do dealing with, I forgot what it's called. Well, it doesn't matter now. I'm not going to do it. But what we're going to do now, though, is a worksheet. Okay? I did email everyone the worksheet. So let me just close this. Okay? I do have the worksheet opened up here as well. Let me just share it. Okay? Now, instead of having everyone work on the worksheet all at once, I think it might be better if I wait, say, I give you like 3 or 4 minutes to do questions 1 and 2. Okay, and then after I go over them, I'll give you questions 3 and 4 to do, that kind of thing. Okay. All right, so let me stop the recording.